This past Tri-State Camp Conference, our all-star podcast guest, Justin Pritikin, presented to a packed room of camp professionals about working with his generation's workforce. Younger camp pros appreciated his candor in speaking up for them, while older camp directors like me appreciated his insight and even offered him jobs right on the spot. So for the past month, he's been giving variations of this session to camp leadership teams across the Northeast, and he was generous enough to record a final presentation just for us, the podcast that broke him. So I strongly encourage you to watch this presentation with all 296 slides on the GoCampPro YouTube channel, because while the audio is stellar, the slides do put it over the top. And then stick around the last 15 minutes of the podcast as well, as Sam and I do a little Q&A with Justin. So kick back and enjoy this super valuable chunk of wisdom that will absolutely help you do a better job in understanding the inner workings of the Gen Z camp workforce. This is the Day Camp Pod.
Thanks, Andy, for that introduction. So the topic that I really want to talk about here is keeping Gen Z staff satisfied and engaged. And this topic and this presentation and the whole thing really came to me from listening to a lot of angry and tired camp directors during and after last summer, whether it was on Facebook, whether it was in person. And when they would complain about Gen Z staff, that was the big thing to complain about. They were talking about how Gen Z staff have less resilience, lower morale, and weak working skills. And then when it was time to solve this problem, all of their solutions were basically incentivizing staff just to show up and getting staff to just do their job. Which, when I would hear that, would make me go crazy. If we're in a place of incentivizing staff to just show up and do their job, we're in a really bad place. And so I work at Everwood Day Camp, and I love my job at Everwood Day Camp. I get to recruit, hire, and train 250 amazing human beings to come to my camp to do some pretty awesome stuff. But the worst part of my job is when a highly qualified applicant applies and wants to make a lot of money. And so a case study that we'll kind of look at through this whole podcast presentation, however way you're interpreting this media, is an applicant by the name of Mary. And Mary comes my way as a rising junior in college with a ton of overnight and day camp, camper, and staff experience. Highly qualified, really. Basically, Mary's mom and I go to spin class together, and I told Mary's mom that we're hiring, and Mary's mom told Mary to come work at my camp. But Mary wants to make $20 an hour. And the problem is that Mary kind of deserves $20 an hour. Because if Mary went and worked at the Natick Mall around the corner from Everwood, well, Mary would make $20 an hour at Zara or Lululemon. That's just how it works right now. And so when Mary's on this Zoom interview with me from their college dorm, I then start having to convince Mary to basically take a pay cut if she's going to work at Everwood. And I close. It's hard sales techniques. Not fun, but we get through it. Guaranteed hours, fun in the sun, all those things we say. And then for the rest of that Zoom, I then explain to Mary what a hard job it is to work at camp, because we should never lie and say it's not hard. Working with kids in this day and age is not easy, right? Especially in the hot heat of the sun. That's kind of a disconnect for Mary and any applicant, truthfully, because, we're demanding a high quality of work for not so great pay at camp. And you could tell me, Justin, we're paying staff more than ever. And you're so right. They don't care. Everything is so expensive nowadays. In 2016, a foot long at Subway, $5. $5 foot long, right? 2020, you had to get 2 for the second one to be $5. And now in 2024, it's 6 inches, $6. That's the promotion. Everything's more expensive. And so the good news, though, is that young people are just straight up broke. That's just the way of the world. There's not a lot of internships. There's not a lot of ways to make fast money, even though everyone on TikTok is telling them they can. They're broke. So they're going to work at your camp, even though you're not paying them well. Which brings me to the first topic. If we're not paying staff well or paying them more, how do we make them even happy at camp? So when I think about Mary when deciding to work at camp, which I knew Mary was going to work at camp because she followed us on Instagram. She didn't even respond to my offer email. She followed me followed Everwood on Instagram, and 4 days later responded. Mary unknowingly enters a social contract when Mary decided to work at camp, where Mary is taking a pay cut and giving me hard work when they come here. And in return, I have to give Mary something. Now, I really want to think about the state of young people first. What do young people even want? In truth, they want to be famous. Everyone wants to be an influencer. But why? Because influencers have a ton of friends. I think it's a big draw, and the fame, but fame is a lot of people who are really into who they are. So connection is huge for young people right now. There was a web browser application called Omegle that got shut down November 8th of 2023, where basically folks would enter virtual Zoom-like chat rooms face-to-face with strangers. The person on the other end could be 8, could be 80. They could be in Germany, Russia, Florida, you name it. So yeah, a lot of really horrible and gross things happened. But there are YouTube videos with millions of views of people reacting to these Omegle type conversations. There are videos with millions of views of them reacting to people watching them interact in Omegle. It's very sad. Fact is, young people are so alone. I mean, Omegle had 3.35 million active users. In COVID, it was close to 10. During pre and post COVID, it was about 24 million a week, and those numbers were almost quadrupled during the height of the pandemic. And so young people are so alone. If you want to date someone, you get an app. Less people go to places of worship. Less people are involved in the Rotary, the Scouts. Folks don't talk to their neighbors. 2010, Americans spent 3% of their waking hours on phones. Now it's closer to 33% as of 2021. Gen Z Americans in 2022 unlocked their phone an average of 87 times per day. We got phones, we got addicted to them. But what does camp give people? Well, it gives people connection. Kind of naturally at times. They enter into this community. But I need to be more intentional to that, because truthfully, if I put 20-year-olds in a room and said, be friends, here's some donuts, I don't think that's going to work. People don't know how to make friends, truthfully, anymore. There's no way to swipe into someone's DMs in that space. So I need to be intentional about connection. I need to make sure Mary gets connection when she comes to camp. It's the first part of the social contract I need to uphold. And this is so important for your camp, because work is better with friends. Gallup reports that people who have a best friend at work are more engaged than those who do not. They are more likely to innovate and share ideas, get more work done in less time, and have more fun in their workplace. But you know that. If you're listening to a day camp pod, you probably know this because you probably worked at camp as a frontline staff member before. The best summers of my life were the summers where I showed up to work excited to do goofy, fun, spontaneous things with the awesome staff that were my friends who worked in the same division and department as I did. But you know this. So then how are you prioritizing at camp? And if your answer, your knee-jerk reaction while you're cruising down the highway listening to this is, well, during staff training we do, well, that's great. That's great. What happens when camp starts? Because who cares what happens in staff training? Once camp starts, what's going on? Because young people are so alone. Like if I got a 15-year-old camper, a brand new 15-year-old camper, in my oldest division, my teen division, where every kid has really been here for at least 4 years, what would I do? I would go, oh my God, we got to make this camper as comfortable as possible. And being comfortable at camp is being cool with the people you're around with. It has to be true to be comfortable. So they need friends. They need to know, I'd be socially engineering conversations and similar interests and linking people up. That would be what I would be doing as a staff member with that group of kids. What's the difference with a brand new 16-year-old staff member entrusted to take care of first graders? I don't really see one, because everyone tells me how everyone's brain is developmentally delayed since COVID. So maybe my 16-year-old is walking around with a 14-year-old brain. Okay, maybe it's an even bigger problem then, and a bigger priority to make this true. Because if Mary doesn't have connection at camp, Mary's going to show up to staff training with all the new, cool, hip, young Gen Z staff. And Everwood's huge. Everwood's 75 acres on a 350-acre lake. It's overwhelming. All the cabins are named after trees. It's even confusing for me, and I've worked here for 15 months. And Mary's going to get a little name tag on the first day of training, and we're going to play fun orientation games and learn all this stuff. And it's going to be awkward. It's always awkward. It can never not be awkward at staff training. And then Mary's going to get a group of 18 third graders, a couple sidekicks, and have a really hard first week of camp. And then everything that I was hearing these other camp directors and peers in the industry say of how Gen Z has less resilience, lower morale, weak working skills is going to be true, especially if Mary doesn't have connection. Because why is Mary even working here if Mary doesn't have friends? Because it's certainly not the best paying job in the area. So what's the point of even coming in if you don't have friends? It's not the paycheck. So those third graders are going to break Mary really quickly. And Mary's going to quit, or in day camp terms, it's they don't show up to camp and you have to figure out that they ghosted you. It's always a fun game. And that social contract really hits a brick wall fast if connection is not occurring for Mary. And that is going to come out of Mary's mouth as, I don't get paid enough here, which is like totally fair. Actually, she works at camp. I 100% agree with this, right? Like we've all said this at some point. But that brick wall for my staff comes at warp speed because every single person is hiring. All these young staff are getting emails and notifications from LinkedIn, Indeed, Handshake. Here are 24 jobs in your immediate area that pay more, by the way, and you can one-click apply to them today. It's that simple. Don't you want to try? Your profile matches. So Mary has a lot of options. It's not like it used to be, or as I've been told it used to be, where you get a job and you stay there because you have to, because that's what good people do. That's not the case. So if Mary doesn't have any friends, Mary can, well, quit on me really fast. And Mary and I had a great interview. Mary told me how much she loved Taylor Swift's album Red. I told her how much I love Reputation. We bonded, we laughed. But Mary can quit on me on a dime. Mary can't really quit on friends because Mary doesn't have a lot of friends. We know this about young people. And if you're like, oh, Justin, you're so horrible. How could you say this? Do kids with no friends come back to camp? No. So why would staff? And that kind of brings us back to the social contract thing. Once Mary has connection, then Mary can have fun. And the second thing I'm going to give Mary is fun because, well, we tell people it's a fun job here. I need to deliver on that. It's not that hard to deliver on, truthfully. But also, even if I didn't say it was fun, people associate camp with fun. So it should be fun. Which brings me to the point that the camp job needs to be feasible for it to be fun. We'll circle back to that in a moment. But topic 2, if we're not paying staff more, how do we motivate them? And that's where I kind of even have a problem with that sentence. Like, we need to be encouraging staff, not motivating them. I have 39 days. If staff members need motivation, one of two things. One, it ain't going to happen because they're just already burnt out and it's the second week of camp. And in general, like, burnout is irreversible. That's like the thing about burnout that makes it so problematic. The other side of it is like, I don't have time to be motivating staff. It's 39 days that start in a blink of an eye and end before I even can interpret what had happened. It just starts and ends. We know how fast day camp days move. It's just simple encouragement, which is basically praise. We need to be praising our staff. And pizza and Gatorade for everyone, it's mid. It's 5 out of 10. Fine. Okay, whatever. Sure. It's also cheap pizza. We never buy the nice pizza. And when everyone gets it, it's not earned. If the awesome kayaking instructor gets the crappy pepperoni pizza and so does the trash kayaking instructor, all it's going to do is piss that good staff member off. That's not fun. In regards to attendance bonus, so you didn't go to your doctor's appointment? Great, here's some money, or here's a gift, or enter a raffle. When everyone will get it, it becomes an expectation instead of a celebration. Truthfully, the only problem is if you didn't give it to the one person because you ran out, then you just have a catastrophe maybe. There's not a high ceiling on these types of praise. And what are we even praising? Surviving? Oh, you survived the week. Here's Gatorade. Are we praising surviving the job? Is that what we want to do? Because if I'm a new employee like Mary and I go through staff training, which is awkward and weird, and those third graders give me a hard time, and guess what? I'm not used to having a hard time, because if you told me that I had an evening to crank out a 10-page college paper, thank God I have this thing called ChatGPT. It's amazing. Everything's easier now. So now I just got my butt whooped by 18 third graders, and you gave me a orange Gatorade on a Friday. I don't even like orange Gatorade. I wish it was lemon lime. You think that's going to make me like, oh yeah, I feel great about myself? And then the division leader at the same time is like, oh yeah, by the way, Mary, Monday's pajama day, so I'll see you in like a onesie or something. Woohoo, camp. Mary's probably like, what the hell is going on here? Right? So there's like a disclaimer to this as well. There's an element of power of performance, and we'll circle back to that in a moment. But what do our staff even want is something I want to consider first before I even praise them. So I asked my staff, I asked more than 100 of the highest performers at Everwood last summer. We did exit interviews for about 20 to 60 minutes each before, during, after camp. And I asked them. They told me they want to feel respected. They want to feel like the work they did mattered, to be connected to people, to have fun, to be adequately supported, to be prepared accordingly, to have a sense of belonging, to feel like their hard work was recognized, to feel like they're a part of something special, to be creative, to have their skills utilized. Love how much overlap there is, makes it easier. But when I think about that list, none of it's unreasonable. That's what they wanted. What they didn't want, to feel like a cog in the machine. No one wanted to be staff member number 262, staff member 14, staff member 171. No one wanted that. So when I think about the things that they want, that kind of became my framework for our staff experience, especially going into this year and how we've revamped our program to more align with it. And going back to the power of performance, when everyone just gets a slice of crap pizza and you hand out Gatorades in a rush at the end of the day as a thanks for this great week, it's very cog in the machine. And praise is supposed to make people feel special, right? And unless everyone's getting a new car, it's the Oprah Winfrey Show, and we're in the glory days of 2005 network television, well, it's probably not so special. So going back to that framework of the things that they like, I also try to leverage peer-to-peer recognition. Why? Because there's one me. I don't have enough time, and I'm also like not too familiar with what's going on. The other thing I like to touch upon, and I'll circle back to in a moment, is relational leaders, the staff who manage the frontline staff that are also managed by associate or assistant or just the director team in general. They don't have the capacity at my camp to fire people. So there's not really a reason for them to be like complete, like hard, like, I don't know, like jerks, like give intense feedback. Like that can be me. That can be the other directors. But at the end of the day, these are the people who are ultimately motivating my staff and encouraging them with praise every single day. So it sometimes falls on deaf ears to them. So which is why I like to leverage their peers. Creates a great workplace culture, develops a sense of collaboration, and helps the empowerment of employees as well. But so leveraging some of those factors of what people want, to be connected to people, feel like the work they did mattered, have a sense of belonging, have their hard work recognized, to feel like they're a part of something special. Well, the top of our mountain of praise, the best it's going to get at Everwood, doesn't get better than this, is our Most Outstanding Human Award. It's a $6 trophy. It's tacky, it's ugly, it's big. Our division leader gives a speech in front of the whole camp or department head. No one knows who it is until the very end. And they call that staff member's name down. And it's the one time at camp when the whole camp is together. So it's every Friday afternoon assembly. The staff member comes down, the whole camp goes crazy, especially their kids in their division. They lose it. The photos are great. And this award was voted on by their peers. Their peers anonymously vote that morning on who is the most outstanding human award in their division or department. I could 100% rush an election, the whole thing, and rig it if I wanted to, but I've never had to. Truthfully, it actually works out as it should. It's the right type of people winning. I have some really awesome staff. I have more than 250. Not all of them can win. So that's why I say that's the best it's going to get. That's what the top 5 to 7, I guess, percent win and get that powerful moment. And then the bottom 5, they get fired. That's the bottom of my mountain. So that most outstanding human thing is leveraging peer-to-peer but also performance. And it's the one time we really do that with the whole camp. So going back to the mountain, if the most outstanding human award is the tippy top, and you're out of here, which we did. We do that. I recognize that's a privileged position to be in. We're staffed in a way and continuously staffed in a way to be able to move on from people when need be. Kind of brings me, though, to how we always talk about invisible kids, but we also have invisible staff. So I want to get campy for a second. What drives me crazy is that we wait till the last day when everyone's sad for kids to leave notes for their staff. That then all staff save because they make us feel great when we read them. So why do we wait to the end, and why do we wait for kids? What could stop me right now from going on Etsy, buying 24 chevron-style bracelets off some child's shop that they're raising money for some charity, write a quick little note for them during the summer, and hand them out to staff as I see fit? I don't know, am I horrible because I didn't make them? Been in camping and gone to camp for the last 23 years. I can make a pretty bang-up chevron bracelet pretty fast. But I don't have that time during the summer. Well, that really should be our relational leaders, the people who oversee our frontline staff, doing special gifts and gestures like that. Because if I am inside my office or dealing with problems all day, how am I ever witnessing a lot of these amazing moments that our staff have? It's these relational leaders who see them and are talking with them constantly. If I go up to a staff member and give them amazing verbal praise, it's because someone told me what they did. My staff know that. So there's kind of like a bit of like a BS meter for them if I gave them a bracelet with a note and said, way to go with blah, 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 blah. So I think about our staff goals and how they want to feel. Like, yeah, I could totally give out a bracelet with a note, but like we can also make it a bit more of a ceremony where it's done with the whole division in front of the kids and utilize that element of the power of performance. Because the praise needs to matter. And the power of performance is how you elevate that $6 stupid looking trophy, the paper plate award, the certificate. It's even how you can elevate Gatorade. And when I think about what I want to even praise at camp as well, is I want to praise going above and beyond at their job. So I like to think about pain points, which ultimately become opportunities for staff to step up and become superstars. So a pain point is basically we design, and when I say we, I mean like all camp directors. We run and design our camp in the most efficient, effective way. But there are things that we know are going to happen that are going to make our camp significantly harder and stink for a really short period of time. We don't know when, but we know they are going to happen. For instance, it's going to rain. It's going to thunderstorm. It's going to be raining sideways. We don't know when, but it's going to happen. We know that there's going to be a day where 10 people all woke up sick and decided to call the office with 30 minutes before camp start, and we only have 8 staff to cover for those 10. So there might be a group of second graders on a day it's raining sideways where they're short-staffed and in a tough situation. And my best staff members are gonna crush. I think of one in particular here. Her name's Leah. Leah works with our younger kids. Leah won a Most Outstanding Human trophy week 2 of camp. She is a rock star. Leah, during this situation, short-staffed and raining sideways, is going to be phenomenal and go above and beyond. Now, at the end of the day, if I gave all of my staff a Gatorade, what will happen is the worst possible thing. Leah will go, I stood on picnic tables leading chants, songs, cheers. I sat with Sadie when she was crying and talked her through the thunderstorm. I did this, I did that. And Justin handed me a Gatorade. And when he handed me a Gatorade, he said I was a rock star. But he also gave one to Tanya. And Tanya sucks. Now Leah feels like a cog in the machine. And Leah already won a Most Outstanding Human trophy last week, but it doesn't matter. It's week 3 now. Now, ideally, I should have Swedish fish for Leah. And if you went into my desk right now, I do, because I know Leah is going to step up and crush so many times this summer. And when she does, I'll be ready to let her know how much I appreciated it and have something I know she loves. But we can't give something to everyone. What I always say about these pain points is we need to celebrate the attempt and reward the success. So, if it was that situation, I would grab that division all together and I would say, hey, everyone, I'm so proud to be a part of a camp where we all work together and do X, Y, Z. And today was so crazy. Like, oh my God, when that like tree fell, like that was nuts. And we still did A, B, and C. And that was so great how we all, worked together and made some really great things happen today. I'll see you tomorrow. But before you go, I just want to give a special shout out to Leah, Jack, Jason, Yuri, so on and so forth. And hey, all of you, just come meet me in my office before you head out. I have some stuff for you. Oh yeah, I'll say it right in front of them. I don't care. I want to celebrate the attempt, but I want to reward the success. We give out a lot of trophies at Everwood. Not everyone gets one. That's not how the world works, and that's not how I plan on running camp. So going back to the mountain, another weird pain point about Everwood. When Leah wins that Most Outstanding Human Award week 2, you know what happens? People lose. Just as talented staff members lose. And no one likes to come in second place. Here's the thing about anonymous voting. You say it's anonymous, but they tell everyone who they voted for. So now I might have Jake. And Jake might be like, wait, I thought 6 people told me they voted for me in first place. How the hell did I not win? So I need to do something for Jake. I need to do something for Izzy. I need to do something for the people who are just as good as Leah who didn't win that award. And if you're like, well, Justin, aren't you praising everyone at this point? I'd say no. Because these are my cool kids. This is the top of the social ladder. There's social commerce in being good at your job at Everwood. They dictate my culture. And if there's one thing I hope social media has taught you, there is also social commerce in complaining. Here's the worst case scenario. Jake comes in second for the Most Outstanding Human Award when he thought he was going to win, right? And then Jake goes, what the hell? I worked so hard this week. I did all of these amazing things and I didn't win this award. And then all the bad staff go, oh my God, Jake, you're so right. Like, oh my God, you're so right. This place sucks. And then that staff culture spreads like wildfire. Now I have a really big, really, really big problem on my hands. The other thing is Gen Z loves positive reinforcement. If I went to Chipotle right now and got myself a double chicken burrito bowl, I'm going to get a nice whopping load of points that I can spend on guacamole and queso and a side of chips next time. Creates brand loyalty. Does our camp paycheck create brand loyalty? Not so much. If I go to spin class, I get an automated text message. Now that was hard work, well done. That's how they always start. And then it says, way to put in the extra effort today with the trainer. We're so glad you're a part of our team. It's stupid, but silly, but I get it every time. If I go to Starbucks and get a pink drink, I get stars. When I went to Zoom college 4 years ago, this time, I was wrapping up my sophomore year at Villanova on Zoom. If I had my camera on in Zoom school, I was brave. You have your camera on today? You're so brave, Justin. Thanks for coming to class with your camera on. I'm literally wearing pajamas. Like, what are we talking about? But this is the world we grew up in. This is the world Gen Z was raised in. And we didn't decide it. We didn't decide it. I think the number one thing that drives me and peers my age, we talk about this all the time, about being like young and getting blamed for things as young people. It's like, I got someone approached me and said that I didn't know how to use an encyclopedia in a camp session. They said, Gen Z doesn't know how to use encyclopedias. And I would just like to say, I did not invent Google. I've grown up with Google. I've had a Google email since I was 7. Like, I've never needed to know. I probably could figure it out, though. Gotta say. Someone even said that about, like, driving stick. Young people don't know how to drive stick. And they, like, looked at me, and I was like, yeah, well, when I went to go buy a car for the first time, keys weren't even an option. It was push to start. So I didn't do that, though. Like, older people did, which is fine. But the world that we grew up in, this attention-based economy, also has an overdose on instant gratification. And here's a side note on instant gratification. We get so much of it, and then we show up to camp, and we don't get it anymore. And we have withdrawal. But there's a weird form of that withdrawal at camp, which is where, like, going back to, like, invisible staff, there's the staff members that are, like, so good and in your face. They're so good that we have to let them know because they're always around us and, like, want to be our friends. And then there's the staff who need management, not coaching, not mentorship, straight up management, right? And then there's staff who are doing good. You go, oh yeah, Mary's doing great. Mary's doing fine. Does Mary know she's doing fine? She had 14 hours of training, and then I gave her 18 8-year-olds and said, go to archery. What? How would Mary know? How would Mary know if no one told her? And that's kind of where that instant gratification withdrawal comes. Because if no one tells me, I don't think I'm doing a good job. Because the world I'm raised in, the world Gen Z's been raised in, like think about Google Docs for a second. If I spelled something wrong, there's an automatic red line under it, and I can right click and fix it. And I know I made a mistake, and that's okay because I can fix it and I know what to do next time. And if I didn't write anything wrong, no red lights came up, I would still highlight my paper and spell check it. And it would say, looks good. And I'd go, okay, yeah, so it is good. Good to know. Good to know. Great. Like my own personal hell in this. My mom's learning German on Duolingo, so if I'm in the same room as her, it's like crazy and a little annoying at times. But if she says something wrong, the green owl lets her know instantly. And if she says something right, the green owl gives her a thumbs up. That's just the world. I don't think Gen Z is as scared of feedback as people make them out to be. But also, like, think about social media for a second, and not to pick on young women, but if a young woman posts a photo on Instagram right now, gorgeous, pretty, slay, pop off, work, queen, obsessed with you, I want to be you when I grow up, OMG, kiss me right now. Like, this is what gets commented immediately by people they haven't even talked to in months. There's memes, there's paragraphs, there's articles written on this. If people needed help commenting on their friend's Instagram, you can look it up. It's sad. It's a sad state of the world. This goes back to invisible kids, invisible staff. So like when I think about that mountain, I have to actually budget my time. I have 39 days and more than 250 staff. So I separate my staff into 4 categories. The top are my all-stars, the folks who are in the contention to basically win most outstanding human, the best of the best. I have to treat them like royalty at the end of the day. Because my favorite part about those staff members is that the kids in their group come back to camp every year because they're disgustingly good at working with kids. And they make camp better. Then my next tier is solid. Solid's really important, just as important. A sports example, for instance, I'm in the Massachusetts area. So like Derek White is so solid for the Boston Celtics that sometimes people even think he's an all-star. Or for my friends who are following the Villanova Knicks, my new favorite basketball team, Josh Hart is so solid. Another like example, if you're not thinking, not in the sports realm, have you ever watched like a movie or TV show and you always see like those same people in it, and they're always in the good shows, and they always have like secondary like characters that are in a couple of episodes here and there, but every time they're in something, they're amazing. You're like, oh wow, wasn't he in Breaking Bad? And he was also in Succession. Like what? Oh, what's his name? Oh, he's in everything. Solid. Those people are solid. They're so important. The next tier on my mountain, well, any of the 2 next tiers are a breach of contract, a breach of my social contract, because the next tier is aggressively fine, which is mid. Aggressively fine is like 5 out of 10 forgettable. You're okay, but I can find someone better during the off season. I'm not going to ask you back. You're fine. You're not a bar raiser at the end of the day. And if you're aggressively fine, you're no longer giving me hard work. You're taking a pay cut, but you're not giving me hard work. So I'm going to stop working my tail off on making sure you're having fun and making friends here, because you dropped the ball when it came to working hard. So when I think about hiking the mountain, oh, and if you're wondering what the 4th tier of the mountain is, I said before, you're fired, you're out of here. I'll do it, don't make me. But hiking the mountain to-do list. The first thing you gotta do is you gotta identify pain points at camp. And the best thing to do to identify pain points at camp is to think about every single position at your camp and the daily schedule and what could go wrong. I'll give you an example, like a weird one, that is super relatable to anyone who has a pool at their camp. A 4-year-old at my camp is going to poop the pool. It's going to happen one day. I know it's going to happen. It's so sad. I got more than 100 4-year-olds. It's bound to happen. Well, when someone poops a pool, we can't swim in it for the rest of the day. 3rd grade free swim canceled. 45 minutes. Here's the lower camp soccer field. 3, 2, 1, go. That's going to happen. Now I want to train my returning staff on what to do in these moments. But at the same time, when someone steps up, I want to hear about it. And I want to let them know how great they were. A way to also figure this out, besides like doing that manually, is ask your staff what's the most frustrating part of your job. Also include the disclaimer, don't mention the kids. Just like let me know like other things about it. What would you like more training on? My staff tell me they want to be prepared accordingly. So I like to go up to them during the first couple weeks of camp, especially, and go, all right, I know we gave you 14 hours of staff training, and then you showed up at camp and 1,000 people showed up and we said 3, 2, 1, let's go. What do you wish we trained you more on? What have you noticed has been hard lately? Like, I kind of admit fault. There's only so much we can do, right? And then they tell me, and then I spider web it with all the other people who need training and what they said. And I pull people out of lunch and other things, and we train them. I also like to ask a question: if you lived in the sky, basically, if you had all the power in the world, what would you do to make camp better for you, for your kids? It's super important. And the nice part about like the pain points and celebrating people's success in it, when I think about like our mountain of praise and the all-stars and solid, those are the people who do well during these moments, is what we celebrate is and becomes what we value at camp. And when we are celebrating staff just showing up and staff just doing their job, well, it's a pretty weak value. Crazy part about having Andy Pritikin as your dad, and there's a lot of crazy parts about having a guy who had dreadlocks when he got married, and it was an absolute drama. It was the name of his band, which was a Pink Floyd cover band on Star Search. It's a pretty interesting dad to have. But like growing up with a camp director dad who's highly involved in the ACA and other organizations, all he did was talk about at dinner this amazing guy who runs this amazing camp, this amazing person just started this amazing foundation, who just brag about all these awesome people in camp that he knew in their crazy programs. It's like, okay, I want my camp to be something like that. So what do we value? Well, the things that make those programs so great, which at the end of the day is the staff at these programs. And it's the staff being responsible, adaptable, having entrepreneurial skills, being able to match their personality skills and creativity to the situations around them, positivity and leadership. So that's what I want to recognize at my camp. But the camp job needs to be feasible as well. And I want to identify what a pressure point is versus a pain point. A pressure point is basically scheduled pain again and again and again. And here's the problem about pressure points. In like the real world, in the sports world, I know I keep talking about sports. I love sports. I'm so sorry. Zach Wilson was drafted 2nd overall in the 2021 draft by the New York Jets, and he was recently just traded to the Denver Broncos for a bag of Fritos. Literally nothing. But there are articles and research and things about how Zach Wilson would have thrived with the San Francisco 49ers, and Zach Wilson could be Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy was the last pick in the 2022 draft, and he took the 49ers to the Super Bowl. What's the difference? Well, they both have great receivers and running backs, but Brock Purdy has an offensive line to protect him from the scary defense, and Zach Wilson doesn't. So Zach Wilson's always stressed all day. Well, if your staff have a bad schedule, oh, we have 10 minutes to get out of the lake, get changed, and go somewhere? Oh, that sucks. And that's unachievable. And every day my middle manager is mad at me because I'm late to that period, and I'm late to high ropes, and the high ropes instructor is stressed out because they have 25 minutes for 18 kids on the zip line, and then they're all stressed out. Well, think a lot about like Sebastian. Sebastian was an amazing staff member I had who worked with 4-year-olds. Sebastian was great, but if Sebastian had a good schedule and a really good team, if Sebastian had a bad schedule and a bad team, would Sebastian have been the all-star who won a Most Outstanding Human Award and was amazing with my youngest campers? I don't think he would have had the runway to achieve what he did. And staff already have to be so many things, and they have to be because we need them to be. That's the line of work we're in. They need to be coaches, older siblings, cheerleaders, clowns, disciplinaries, and philosophers. I say philosopher because we tell them our star, our animal, our shape, whatever it might be, our words that we're going to teach kids and we're going to change kids' lives. And then we're yelling at them for being 5 minutes late to high ropes because we gave them no time to get changed. Well, now they feel like they're just shepherding kids through a pretty bad program, which is an immediate disconnect and kind of goes against the social contract because that's not so fun. And it feels like being a cog in the machine, which is what pressure points do and why I hate them so much. And they create disconnects and they don't make the job fun, which is why we have to remove them if possible. And if we can't remove them, we need to be taking care of staff during those moments and being more understanding, but also praising them when they do triumph in adverse times, which they are. The next thing is we need to give the staff what they want, which in my case is that like list I read really fast. But also, I like to ask them, what do you really want to do? What would you brag about doing? How can I make your job better? I'll give you an example. What do you really want to do? Dylan works with second grade boys at Everwood. Here's the thing about them. They don't weigh enough to do our high ropes, but Dylan loved it. and walked by it every day and basically went, oh man, I wish I could do that. So when I asked him, what do you really want to do at camp? He said, I want to do high ropes. Sweet. He did it. He loved it. How hard is it to pull Dylan out of a period 5 minutes early, sneak him onto high ropes? Not hard. I could pretend to be Dylan for 5 minutes. So could like any other middle manager at my camp. I asked Denise. Denise works with first graders. What do you really want to do? Denise said, I want to have a s'mores party with my kids. We've never made s'mores at camp. I was like, wow, Denise, wait, tell me I suck at my job. We haven't made s'mores at camp with your group? Wow. Oh, God. We should be making more s'mores at camp. Easy. We had sprinklers and s'mores party with the first graders. It was stupid. It was silly. It was camp. It was fun. They had a great time. Also, one of the best moments at camp ever been on the schedule. No one's ever been like, oh, wow, I love coming to Everwood. Third period basketball, am I right? No, it's moments like that. Enthusiasm is caught, not taught. What would you brag about doing? Jack said a pie eating contest. He said, I'd brag to all my teammates on my rugby squad if I won a pie eating contest. He did. It was funny. It was silly. Another staff member, Alex, wanted his head shaved. A little weird, but silly. Very camp. These kids, 5th to 9th grade, who watched this happen went crazy. They loved it. How can I make your job better? Typically, it's similar answers to the other types of questions I like to ask, but I never ask these questions if I know I can't solve them. And yeah, sometimes when people say, I want more of this and it's impossible to do, well, I let them know, but I solve every manageable answer possible. Sometimes it's as simple as the locks in the bathroom don't work. It's driving me crazy. Yeah, okay, that's a problem. Let's fix it. And the last thing I like to say about hiking the mountain, the to-do list I like to give out, is don't forget about the staff. This attention-based economy has been me all their life. Now they come to a camp where they're told they're a part of something bigger than themselves, a community, a team, a family. But kind of hard to work at camp. I mean, you're not getting paid a lot of money. It's hard. If they don't have any friends, they're not having fun, they're gonna feel invisible really quickly, which they're not used to always feeling nowadays. With all the algorithms, with all the instant gratification, we can't forget about them. I'll say this, since doing a lot of these things, and the way I kind of like to talk about this is like, this is just what I'm doing. Take it as you will, do what you want, throw away what you don't really care at the end of the day. Our staff retention is 62% this year versus 30.67 last year, the year prior. It's 102.15% year-to-year increase. It takes one good summer of making people feel part of something bigger than themselves and a part of a team and making sure that they have friends and feeling valued to, truthfully, not make me have to hire 250 people in 100 days like I did last year, which was really hard and really crazy. Are we out of the woods yet? Well, Taylor Swift, we are. Are we in the clear yet? No, Taylor, we're not. But we're so close. We're so close. And this is like that summer where we make the next couple of steps that we need to have this exact environment that we want to. Because truthfully, the sad story about Everwood is I lost a lot of staff from COVID, like a lot of camps did. There aren't those, 10-year vets that there were. It's 2-year vets, 3-year vets. People don't know how to be spontaneous at camp. They don't know the tradition. They don't know the culture. We have to start it from scratch. But it takes 1 year with one good team to make that difference. And that is kind of my ending message. Because there are camps that closed down last year from staff walkouts. They might have been a little understaffed. They certainly were underappreciated. And the staff looked around and said, yep, we're good, and left. I actually have a staff member who was working for me last summer who was at a Girl Scout camp on the East Coast that closed. And she said, yeah, 15% left one day, 40% left the next day, and then everyone left the day after that. And the directors had to call home to pick up kids. It was an overnight camp, so a little different than day, but not great. So don't forget about your staff. They want to feel important, and they are, because they are the ones who are the authors of the camper experience, because they're the ones directly overseeing it. That's my whole shebang. Thank you for listening as I stand in my office at 10 o'clock at night yelling at a computer on Zoom by myself. This has been the most awkward recording of anything I've ever done in my life, and I hope it comes out well. Andy is now going to do Q&A with me. But yeah, okay, bye.
All right. Well, thank you, Justin. That was really something. We appreciate it. Oh, look, you look like you're in the same place that you actually recorded it,
I am. Just did a
in your
quick
basement.
change. Yep.
Yeah. Well, interesting day camp story. Justin was about to leave, was over for Tri-State, right?
It was the Sunday afternoon. I said, you know what? I might as well work on my session today. And I went in to do work and found the office in some areas a half a foot of water, but we had a massive pipe burst.
Wow.
And yeah, so been doing the whole working in random places type thing since then.
Crazy, crazy. Yeah. So I just got to listen and watch your session again, and it was good. It was very, very good. I hope these people out there appreciated it, all the insight, um, and and I hope they stuck around to the end, because now we're at the end of the podcast. You know, the percentages show that there's not as many people that stick around to the end of the podcast, right, Justin? Because you and your buddies, the short attention span theater, you know.
That's okay. That's
But
okay.
and by the way, for those, I hope if you listen to the Jeff Lycan one that came out last week, you got to stick it out to the end, because his real nuggets of awesome wisdom actually came in the last 5 minutes of the podcast. But anyway, I got some points about your presentation. First of all, I was in a band called Absolute Drama. That was not a Pink Floyd cover band. That was on Star Search. So I just want to go set the record straight that my Absolute Drama band was a original band that was on Star Search. You're juxtaposing my many bands. All right.
Sorry.
I didn't know if that was a slip of the tongue or
It's hard to keep track of Afro Andy considering I'm born post Afro. So it all blends together.
Yeah. So Justin presented versions of this presentation to, I guess if you count Liberty Lake, Kenwood Evergreen, and Everwood, it would be about 6 different camps. Oh, and then Sam showed it to her people too.
Yep. I
So-
used it for a staff training for my directors.
Yeah,
so they could
my-
understand.
So my question to you, Justin, is out of these things that you've done, what's like a theme of feedback that you've been getting when you open it up for questions? What are the kind of things that you're hearing from these leadership teams that they're sort of curious about? And I'm guessing it's more like middle-aged people asking you these questions.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. Most questions are, how would you go about this? And certain like situations that arise at camp. I think like a really common one is I talk a lot about like no one likes to come in second place.
Mhm.
And I think there's a lot of versions of second place at camp. I think a traditional one as well is like color war, Olympic, whatever you want to call it, like spirit captains, team leaders, whatever those roles are. Only so many people can be it, but so many people might want to do it. And you're not giving someone something in the same vein who's probably just as talented. They might have done it last year, 2 years ago, whatever your reason is, and finding things for these people to do, to feel valued and important, and to do for them to feel valued and important. And so I think that's been the biggest conversation, but also like feasibility of time. I think that, at Everwood, the average supervisor oversees like 10, maybe 12 seasonal staff, whereas some of these camps it's 20, 25, 30, 35. Less time, it's not going to be as grand.
Yeah.
So figuring out quicker solutions to have a similar impact.
Right. And that also has to do with the, what these places charge, right? And how much they can pay people and how many people they can have, right? Because as Liberty Lake became more successful, I was able to bolster my leadership team and have them be able to supervise less people. So yeah, so I tend to think the nonprofit camps are probably supervising more people, right?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I think the other thing that comes up a lot is I think a lot of like the preconditions to the current set of circumstances that Gen Z's in terms of like their upbringing and what's affected them. I think it's been illuminating. I think it all makes sense to people. I think people are like, oh yeah, that 100%. I see that. I get that. That works. I didn't really understand how it would affect in a camp sense. And I think that there's so many other versions of like little things like that. But I really get worried when like even in my meetings when people are just like overlooking staff and we have those invisible staff. And I think having a firm understanding of that and understanding how important it is when the staff come back, the kids come back, and we have that community where we can elevate and bring in tradition, and that's kind of where I'm at Everwood right now, which is awesome. It's way better than everyone's new and doesn't know where anything is. And so I'd like to keep it that way. So, but those people who are invisible matter immensely in that.
And
We
go
we've
ahead,
had
Sam.
a big growth this year. So now each of my directors has like 25 staff each. And our support stuff and our um treats, if you will, were way outmoded and not specific. So we geared our whole year this year to making things more specific, doing more of a social contract to eliminate some of the ghosting. So we've been communicating a lot more, but it all started with Tri-State, with your talk, and then we've been trying to ramp it up and figure out how we can do it, like you said, with not much time, with not many resources, but we've got to make it new and we've got to make it more specific. So
And Justin, what you said about invisible staff, like that really rings relevant to me because like you said, it's the same thing as invisible campers. And I've always said ever since I started doing workshops and podcasts and such, that it's really, it should be synchronized, right? The kind of what we're doing for the attention and the care and the individualization that we do for the campers, like we should be doing it for the staff, right? My relationship as a director to my middle management should be the same as their relationship to the frontline staff, which should be the same relationship as to the campers, straight down. Seems pretty logical, but for whatever reason, it gets hung up.
I agree. No argument there.
So the thing when I listen to your presentation, the thing that hits me most, that resonates most, that I take with me every day with me now, is your expression pain points.
Yeah.
Because and then how you dealt with the ones at Everwood last year, in that we all have these pain points in our camp programs, and a lot of them are logistical, and a lot of them are programmatic, and a lot of them it's that whole, well, that's how we've always done it kind of thing. And it takes sometimes new eyeballs to come in and see them and call them out. And I always try to empower my new middle management people to tell them they have a red carpet to my brain. Like, you see something that doesn't seem right, like, please tell me, because as great as myself and Brandy are, and how much we care, and we started this camp from scratch, and we never want to be stuck in a hole like these camps that have been around forever, right? It's still, your brain gets used to seeing things a certain way, and you can't see it from the inside out.
Yeah. Well, so it all comes back to social contract of like, I need this job to be fun, right? And I need people to feel appreciated and connected to the sense that like, yeah, we all fought hard together, but not everyone got something for fighting that day when a really crappy situation comes up. And if people give it their all and then leave and nothing happens the next day and they're not recognized for it, I don't know. This is the world of instant gratification. And then they're pissed off and they're not having fun. And so I keep it real simple with the leadership team here of like, if the staff aren't having fun, we're probably going to have a big problem on our hand. But that's also like a side of like staff feeling gratified, but also respected, which, when the Everwood staff told me what they want to feel valued for what they do. They want to have their skills maximized. So when they do maximize their skill, we need to make them feel valued. And so I don't care for the person who phoned it in on that rainy day. That is a breach of social contract. It's the person who went above and beyond when someone pooped in the pool and we were on a field, or when it was a tornado warning, so we were stuck inside the cabin because that's just what time we got stuck in. We didn't get stuck in the fun building. We got stuck in cabin E, and they crushed it. It's like, that's what matters to me. And so it's really easy to get, especially these younger teachers who I work with in these middle management roles, aligned to like, good is not what we are praising. It's great. And this is what greatness looks like. And it's success in these not so great moments.
well, like discipline, the good pats on the back have to be time sensitive and immediate as also. Otherwise, they're not effective.
Yeah.
Right. Well, when we started doing the E21 stuff at camp, a lot of the when you'd meet with the staff, it was like meets expectations, exceeds expectations, doesn't meet expectations, right? And what you're saying about that social contract thing is that meets expectations at a camp is probably higher than a lot of people think.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If I'm training someone to work free swim at Everwood, I explain exactly what it should look like. And to be honest, the floor is pretty much the ceiling in how great free swim can get at the lower camp.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
And so it's like, you can't really exceed it unless you like blow my mind. And I can't even tell you what will blow my mind. You just have to figure that out. And so that's where it's like, yeah, you know, it is hard to do all, you know, 7 periods that you work at Everwood. 100%. I totally get that. And that's your job. And yeah, we're not paying you great, but like at baseline, it's feasible. Like you shouldn't fail in that. You should, the machine that's built here should be able to accommodate your pitfalls and, you know, benefit by what you're succeeding at and crushing. It's the adversity that I can't blame.
And going back to your thing about, you know, the person that wins the human of the week or whatever you call it, and then the other people that didn't, even though they were standing on the picnic tables, you know, being amazing during a rainy day. So last year I took a lot of inspiration from the podcast with Ross Coleman and Adam Wallach with the perfect attendance kind of things, and doing a raffle every week and all this kind of thing. And, you know, some people made out pretty well financially from that, I have to say. And at the end of the summer, some people like, you know, Kat Underwood, Justin, like she's overachiever, awesome. She's like one of your great examples in your slideshow. And she came up to me and she was like, you know, I was here every orientation, every day at camp, working my ass off, rainy days, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. I didn't get jack shit.
Okay,
You know?
I literally have a slide that says when
I know.
it becomes an expectation of
Right.
like, yeah,
Right.
that's the problem.
But
Yeah.
she was right. But she was saying, but these, you know, Jamokis got, you know, $200 because they pulled their name out of a raffle hat.
Correct. But at least was it a 5-year-old pulling the name out of the hat, or did you break that tradition? Because that was the best Lure Lake tradition. Let's get the youngest kid to pull the name.
Cutest kid, so it's not my fault, right?
Exactly.
No, it was done in secret. Just before we wrap up, because we try to keep these things around an hour. I just want to, you know, the people listening to this podcast, a lot of them have kids, whether they're little kids, you know, or not, or whatever. You reference a lot in this session about what it's like growing up to be the child of a camp director, and the benefit and all. And I told you that when Sam and I were in Washington, D.C. last week, I was talking to Kat Sangster from resident camp in Maine, Camp Wawanuk. And her daughter was there, and wow, it was just such an interesting conversation with this young lady who was really impressive, because I think that you know, you really get insight, and I think it's partially because it's like you're running a small business, and I think there's just so many aspects of running a small business, you know, hey, I mean, I don't know, Sam, how many times did you tell your kids, we got to be there at 7 a.m. and we have to do this and we got to get that, like, you know, like my kids, that was just their way of life, you know.
Sometimes they'd say, you're just mom right now. You're not the camp director for 5 minutes. You're just mom. Like, all right.
Right. And the valuable lessons that you just take into your life. You know, I just think it's really interesting. And these kids are fortunate in a way.
Yeah, it makes us crazy. And the best part about it, though, is that everything you learn in life, coming when you have such a glasses on that just scream camp director, I just learned way too much about random things and instantly related it back to camp. Of like sitting in like business class in college, I was like, oh, that's when those staff quit late, and it's okay, great. And like this, and it's been so beneficial. Thankfully, I'm like passionate about this. I don't know, like Jess, my sister, I don't know how useful growing up with a camp director has been for her.
I think she listens to a lot of those things. I think they're in her head too.
So it's been great. I'm thankful for the like high school degree I got in camping of just living with you. And I think
it's more like an associate's degree. Let's call it that.
Yeah.
Well, I think my kids definitely got calmer and can make snap decisions way more than they would have without being at camp all their lives. But
right. I think there's different degrees of that, right? I think like those of us that ran camp during the pandemic or even 2021, you know, if you made it through that, then boy, you can sort of do anything, right? You know, then you have situations all the way to the degree of like Justin had leukemia, you know, he's battling that for 7 years. Like, I think that when you're seeing tough situations and they become sort of normalized, it changes your brain. It changes your expectations. You just become more resilient as a person.
Sure. And when your dad is having a hard time with the caterer at camp and comes home at dinner and goes, if I ever open up another camp, we're not serving lunch. You take that, you know, you make a mental note and you file it. Yeah, I remember it was next camp I'm going to open outside of a big city, and we're not serving lunch.
Learn from our mistakes.
You know what? But then we got a good caterer, and now I'm not saying
I know.
it.
Now you have a good care. If this is,
Yeah.
7-year-old Justin doing like addition and subtraction worksheets, taking, big lessons in camping. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Justin, for sharing this with us. It was super generous of you to give this out to everybody, and a great tool. And we anxiously await what the next season will bring.
See what happens during camp. That's what
See what flies into your brain.
Yeah, it's always the summer. All right. Well, take care. Bye.
All right.
Have a good season.
We want to thank AM Skyer, commercial recreation specialist, for allowing us to bring this podcast to you, as well as our editor, Jotham. And if you like what you hear, you should subscribe to the Day Camp Pod on your favorite podcast platform. Check out our show notes for all our episodes at daycamppodcast.com, as well as contact info for the show, our guest, Justin, and for me and co-host Sam Thompson. And of course, if you're listening to this in your car or whatever, you should check out the YouTube channel on GoCampPro YouTube channel, because then you'll get to see all of Justin's 296 slides. So thank you for listening and making yourself a better Day Camp Pro. We'll be back in, I think there's only one more after this for the season, Sam, of the Day Camp Pod.
Well, I think that was pretty good, producer person who's watching this. That was highly stressful. I didn't enjoy that. And I hope that was good. Anyways. I was going to do like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and end it, but I just have to end it like this. Sorry, awkward.